Hi YouTube. Here is after a quite a long wait. Sorry about that. Is the video of the benchmarks that I promised. I'm not going to be recording the benchmarks because obviously that will reduce the performance of the graphics card. But I will be recording and talking about the results obtained by the by the tests. The tests that I'm going to do will be 3DMark 11, 3DMark Vantage, and 3DMark 2013. Those are the three tests I'll be doing. There's no point doing FurMark. That just literally just tells you whether your graphics card is stable at that clock, which it is. The maximum clock I'm going to go to is 1000 core and 1500 memory, with 17% power limit added. I don't really want to go any higher. If you have suggestions on clocks that you've managed with specific voltages, that's great. Comment. But I think this is pretty good. It's good enough for me. Okay, so first test. Stock clocks, 850, 1250. Let's do this. Right then, after a not so lengthy amount of time, we've got the first result of our 850 and 1250 clocks. That's the stock clock. So let's scroll down. Latest drivers from AMD, no beta drivers. So we can see the graphics score 7,469, physics scores 5757, and the combined score is 5352. So yes, my CPU isn't an Intel CPU. Yes, it doesn't perform as well as an Intel CPU. However, it's significantly cheaper than an Intel CPU, and I don't have to switch the entire system over. Now, let's get that out of the way, because I'm sure there'll be lots of comments about Intel people and saying AMD's CPUs suck, but they're not that bad. Okay, let's get over here. So the score places me roughly between I'd say in the top 90% of everyone else who has my setup. We can see down here that the core clock, memory clock, so I haven't cheated. Driver version is as shown, only one card, and my CPU is overclocked to 3.6 gigahertz. That's on the stock fan. I can't go any further without an aftermarket CPU cooler. 8 gigs of RAM and an SSD. So that is what happened. So P score of 6,889. Okay, great. So I will be going on to the next test, which is 3DMark Vantage. Okay, so I'll see you then. Right, once again YouTube, we're back from a slightly longer 3DMark Vantage test than the 3DMark 11. So this is the score you can see on your screens. So the 3DMark Vantage score ended up at 23,094. Performance mode. All of these will be in performance mode. GPU score is 25,600 and CPU score is 17,852. You can see the tests on the right hand side. I'll just read them out. 75.18 frames, test 1. 74.79 frames, test 2. 2,325 operations. Well, that's the CPU. Don't need to know that. Feature test 1, 86 gigatexels per second. Feature test 2, 12 gigapixels. Sorry, the first one was gigatexels. This is gigapixels per second, 12 of feature 2. Feature 3, 101 frames. Feature 4, 101 frames. Feature 5, 87 frames. And feature 6, 208 frames. Those are the results. Yes, I will now continue to a 3DMark, just a 3DMark test, which is the longest test of them all. So yes, I will be back. Hello YouTube. Okay, so we're back, and I don't know why I said hello YouTube. I've said that about 100 times. Okay, so after the 3DMark test, just 3DMark, these are the results. There are 3 tests: Ice Storm, CloudGate, and Firestrike. So let us see the scores. Okay, so let's click result details. Right. Okay, so the Ice Storm score this is all in performance, was 104,239. The graphics score was 172,490, and the physics, which is the CPU, was 43,709. Now, that places me, once again, maybe not the top 90%, but at least the top 60%, because quite a few people got under, nearer to 10,000, so between 83,500 and 100,200. God, that's complicated. Rather than closer to my score, which was just over 100,000. So just squeezed into the that bigger bar there. Once again, 850, 1250, and everything here is the same. Now, if we go back, then we can also see the CloudGate result, which is slightly more neat, more graphics is required for it. So the score was 15,593 combined, graphics score 40,283, and the physics score 44,958. So once again, it's a good. That places me top 80%, I'd say, for this one. That looks roughly okay. So top 80%. I got a score of 15,593, which places me there. Right, let us go down, 850, 1250, once again. If we go back and we go to the most extreme test we've got, that's Firestrike. Now, Firestrike had a score of 5,511. Graphics score was 6,127, and the physics score was 7,610. It was higher. Now, that doesn't seem to be out of the ordinary, considering 152 other people managed to get the same result as me. 5,500 seems about average. So that's 850, 1250. Now, those are the results. If we go back, you can just have a look at that screen again. I'm now going to up the clock to the easy boost setting, EZ boost, by pressing the button on the Sapphire card, or just quite literally clocking the MSI Afterburner. So let's open MSI Afterburner. Okay, we've got it open now. So let us literally enter the overclock settings. That is it. There's no voltage change. That is what the overclock setting is. If we hit apply, we are off and ready to go for our 3DMark 11 test. I'll be back. Hello once again. Right, so 3DMark 11 score of this is the overclocked to the easy boost, so 950 core and 1250 memory. So the score was 7,375, graphics score of 8,271, physics score of 5,759, with a combined score of 5,304. Now, if we look at the similar scores, we can see, once again, I'm in the top 90%-ish. With a score of 7,375, that puts me in that region. Now, if we scroll down, you can see core, clock, 950, 1250. Standard drivers, not beta, and the rest is the same as last time. I will be back in a bit with the 3DMark Vantage scores. I will see you then. Hello, okay, so we're back after the 3DMark Vantage test with the 950 clock and 1250 memory. So we get a score of 23,646 with a GPU score of 26,587 and a CPU score of 17,754. Now, don't think there's much change on the CPU, but obviously the GPU will change because I've changed the clock. Now, the GPU test, I'll just read out the right-hand column again. 77 frames, then 78 frames. Don't need to know that. Feature test 1 is 96 gigapixels per second. Feature test 2 is 12 gigapixels per second. 112 frames 3, 100 frames 4, 93 frames 5, and 231 frames 6. So those are the results. obviously at the end I'll give a conclusion and compare all three sets of results. Now on to the 3DMark, just 3DMark test. Right, I'm back with the 3DMark test with the 950 core clock and the 1250 memory clock. So, let's have a look. So the Ice Storm test got a result of 104,897 with the graphics score of 174,603 and the physics of 43,757. Okay, so if we scroll down we can see that that puts us in the top 60%. It vaguely resembles last time, I believe. And down there you can obviously see that the clocks are as I said they were. Right, the CloudGate result resulted in 15,980, graphics score of 43,989, and a physics score of 4,950. Yes, that puts us in the top 80%, and I'm not sure if this considers the overclock as a collection. This might just be people with a 7950 and a 1090T. Not sure. I will have a look. 950, 1250, and there we go. Okay, Fire Strike, the hardest one to get score in, is 5,944. Just off 6,000. I believe we could have got into the next section. Graphics score 6684, physics score 7588, and combined score 2759. Does that just put us off? It just puts us off. So 50 more points, and I could have squeezed into that column over there. So yes, I'm in the top 40%. I think this does take into account overclock, because I do not remember that graph from last time. So once again, here are the results, the three results, and yes, now I'm going to clock the. Let's do this. Let's go to profile number 1. That is how I've got it. Apply 1000 core, 1500 memory. Minimize that. Okay, let's get on with these results. Coming up next is the 3DMark 11. Right, I'm back again with the 3DMark 11 scores for the 1000 core clock and the 1500 memory clock. So, 3DMark scores. As you can see, the performance score was 7,680. The graphics score was 8782, physics score 5769, and the combined score of 5,320. If we scroll down, we can see that we are placed in the top 90%. Once again, the core clock and the memory clock are shown here, and as follows, same computer as I used last time. That's it. That's our last 3DMark 11 set of results. I will now be doing the 3DMark Vantage, and I'll be back in a few seconds. Okay, so we're back with the Vantage results of the overclock of 1000 and 1500. As you can see, we got a score of 24,493, GPU score of 27,964, and a CPU score of 17,847. I'll just read you out the right hand side once again. 80 frames, 83 frames, skip those two, 101 gigatexels per second, 14 gigapixels per second, 119, 109, 101, and 246 frames per second on those. So yeah, that was the result. This is the, as I said, it's the penultimate result that we've got here, and the next result I will be showing you is going to be the 3DMark. 3DMark test. Right, I'm back for the last set of results. This is the 3DMark test for the 1000 and 1500 overclocked speeds. Right, now the Ice Storm got a speed of 106,848. The graphics was 178131 and the physics was 44509. Now, as we can see, that puts us in the top 40%, I'd say, maybe 60, of the other people doing. Wait a second. That's 1100. Wrong result. I apologize. That's where it is, this one. Yeah, that one. Sorry, I clicked the wrong result. That was 1100, but it wasn't too stable. It started crashing. Batman Arkham City and pixels went different colors, so I decided that I would clock it down. So yeah, as I was saying, the 1000 megahertz, this is, yeah, 1000 and 1500, 104,764 with 174,725 graphics score and a physics score of 43,626. I might just show you that one afterwards. That still puts us in that result, and we got 1,000, you can see there. If we go back, go and have a look at the CloudGate, 16,272 with a graphics score of 46,868 and a physics score of 4,958. As we can scroll down, we can see we're probably in top 80%, and we can see the clocks down there. If we go back once more and have a look at Firestrike, we can see I got 6,300 dead, graphics score of 7,139 and a physics score of 7,607 with a combined score. Why is that the only one to do a combined score? Never mind. Of 2,947. Now, this is the only one which differs from other people's results. Obviously, other people did get this result, 104 of them actually. But this does push us over the 6,000 mark and puts us into the 7,000 mark, which leaves us in the top 40%, I'd say, roughly judging by the size of that bar. As you can see, those are the clocks. Now, I'm just going to stop this right now, and I will... Here you go, let me just show you this. And then I will show you... I won't show you. Yeah, well, I'll talk you through my conclusion and how the overclock affected the results. Thank you for watching. Right, so here we compare the 3DMark 11 scores. Now, the top left is the 850 stock. The top right is a 950 Easy Boost, and the bottom is the overclock 1000 and 1500 megahertz. Now, if we quickly use a calculator, we can work out that the increase from 850 to 950 is 6.59%. Okay, so there's 6.59% increase from the top left to the top right. Now, from the 950 to the overclock is, according to the calculator, a 3.98% increase. Now that's pretty good. That means we got roughly 4%, 5% each time we overclocked. So yeah, that so overall it's an extra like 10% increase, and 10% increase in performance can be seen. And we'll have a look at the Vantage scores to see the difference in frames per second that the increases had. Right, so now we've got the Vantage scores, Vantage whatever. Top left 850, top right 950, and bottom 1000. Now, the increase from 850 to 950 gives a 3DMark score increase of about 550, and GPU score increase of about 1,000. So we can see that that's well, we can see that as the CPU scores stay relatively similar, it's mainly affected by the GPU. So the increase there is 1,000. Sorry, not 1,000. The overall score is about, like we said, 500 points. And the comparison then to the 1001 is quite significantly higher. It's 1,000 points more than the 950, which makes it 1,500 points greater than the 850. Now, as a I'm not too keen on overclocking because it wears out hardware quicker. That was a stable clock speed that I found. I didn't actually increase the voltage any more than the recommended amount by AMD, which means it doesn't actually void any warranty. The 20% is a guideline by AMD. If you go over, then you're starting to break the warranty. So it was at 20% when I did this. It was actually at 17%. But you could do it at 20% because it would only increase the stability because it was just a bit. It was more stable when I tested it at 20%. And those are the results you get. So if you are getting this card, I would recommend you overclocked it to 1000 and 1500 with a power of 20% extra. However, obviously, as all cards, as anything hardware-wise, no two exact same components can be overclocked to the same value at the same voltage. They're all different. But have a go, see if you can get it stable. If you can, I highly recommend you do it because, as we see, it does increase the frames that we have. We do see an increase in frames with the 1000 over the 850, and of course an increase in Vantage score. So that's great. Now let's see what we can find out from the 3DMark score. Now, here are the 3DMark scores. So we have got the top left, as always, 850, top right, 950, bottom, 1000. Now, oddly enough, the 1000 managed to somehow lose to the 950 in the ice storm test. Now, I did the test again, and it was higher, but I just think that's odd. I mean, I did take the average test, so here we go. But it did manage to beat it in all the other tests, obviously, as expected. The 400 increase... sorry, let's start from the beginning. The ice storm increased from 850 to 950 was 600 points. And the increase... Well, let's discount that one, but let's just say it was minus 100 as a off result. An anomaly. The cloud gate increased by 400 and by a further 300 to the 1000. Bearing in mind that from 950 to 1000 is only 50. However, the memory clock was also increased, so that would aid the points. The score increased by 400 from Firestrike 850 to 950, and by a further 400 to 6,300 in 1000 core. Now that is quite a big increase, especially Firestrike is a very hard. It's basically the extreme version of 3DMark 11. So getting that extra 400 points meant that it pushed up another grade, as it were. So it got pushed into another boundary. Now I think that is well worth it. I mean, considering that it was only 50 more core, and core is the only real issue, whereas memory, it's easier to push it further, and you can go higher and higher with the memory, but the core is what matters, and the fact that the core is only at 1000, which is 50 over the Easy Boost, function, it's not that bad, to be honest, and it doesn't fry the GPU because the temperatures were perfectly reasonable. So I monitored the temperatures throughout using the HW info, is it? Yeah, HW info 64, and it said that the GPU was perfect temperature. I can't remember the exact temperature, but it was definitely on average with the previous temperatures it has, mainly due to its aftermarket cooler which Sapphire put on it, and the VaporX technology and all that. So yeah, that does conclude, unfortunately. Well, maybe unfortunately for me. Maybe you're just glad that I'm gonna shut up. Yeah, that concludes the benchmarks for the Sapphire 7950 Vapor X edition overclocked graphics card. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I hope I've made everything very clear, and I've tried to make the screenshots as big as possible to fit on the 1080, the 1920 by 1080 canvas size that I've allowed for. So yeah, that should be great. I may have a surprise for you guys in a few weeks' time. There may be a special review coming up of a certain CPU cooler. So stay tuned for that, and I hope you enjoyed my videos. Okay, great. Thanks. I'll see you on my next video.